right, so we're back here for episode 201, and Richard has started day drinking.
This is liquid death. This is pure water, I might add.
Yeah.
Why is it called liquid death if it's pure water?
See, it's flavored sparkling water because it's all about killing the quench of thirst, as well as their whole marketing thing is getting rid of plastics and all of that, and it's recycled materials, and so it's death to the pollution as well as to your thirst. So cheers to the 200th episode.
Nice.
Got a message to it. All right.
Yeah, we used to do a Drinks with IT episode every once in a while. We should probably revise that. I've actually had a number of people interested in that. So speaking of the future of the podcast, which is what we're going to do here, is bringing back Drinks with IT. I've actually had a fair amount of people interested in doing an episode of that. So I also want to really focus on the future is having more guests, like from MSPs telling their stories.
Yes.
Of how they grew and how they moved forward. We started that earlier this year, but then I had a hard time tracking people down and coordinating. I just need to be better at that. Yeah. So with Humanize IT, the podcast, like some of the things we want to do in the future is just bring that human element to what we do as technology providers. What's working out there? How is the environment changing? We get stories and we start seeing consistencies about what's working. Like we hear all the time that focusing on a specific vertical works. People are doing that are killing it. And people who are too broad tend to be like, okay, how do I get my next customer? Well, what problem are you solving? So these are things that not just Skip and Adam and Richard came up with. It's things that we hear, stories that we hear. So why not lean into that for a podcast? So,
well, that is I think one of the absolute greatest parts of my job is working with all of these MSPs. I like building stuff. That's me. If I'm some sort of, I've got grandkids, toddler age. So, Builder Bob kind of stuff. I guess that's me. And working with these teams to identify their goals, their strengths, their alignments with either vendors or other partners. It's really cool stuff. But again, the commonality that we see across, again, here of late, it's been Australia to United Kingdom, a lot in the US. It's just been around the globe talking with members. And I really, really enjoy that aspect because while I strongly and firmly believe in our mission and our philosophy and the way we view things, I'm all on board with that. But I do know that the unique implementation is different. And I'm not even trying to have all the answers on that because that is a unique element. And hearing people who are on the ground doing some of these more specific tasks is really not only interesting, but it's very informative. And as a community, it helps us all grow. So I'm really looking forward to doing some more of those member involvement activities.
Yeah, and I think Richard, you said it last episode where you said even down to South Africa, like it's still some of the similar problems, a different culture but similar problems. So, and that's the beauty of talking to a variety. And what if we brought that to our audience? Bring those variety of opinions and what's going on to our audience, and also it helps the MSP promote themselves. Like, hey, I was on this podcast. Come check us out.
Yeah.
So you're going to say something, Richard?
Yeah, I think there's also a certain level of authenticity to it. The one thing that I like about your podcast and the way you and Skip go is that it kind of it flows, and somewhere in between, Skip's going to tell a story. We know Skip is a fabulous storyteller. We know that you're going to drop in a story, a personal, and that's what makes it authentic. And as I mentioned in the previous episode, I'm a YouTuber, and it grinds me when I see these YouTubers that are getting the millions of views because they're not authentic, but because they're doing the stuff that is completely out there, driving Ferraris through cornfields and catching them on fire. And within the first hour of it being on YouTube, it gets 1 million views. And I go like, it's not authentic. It's not normal. And I think that as I'm, I mean, it might be normal to somebody. I don't have the money to drive a Ferrari.
I can't drive a Ferrari through a cornfield. Sorry.
I can't drive a Ferrari.
Adam.
Yeah, I can fit in a Ferrari.
Well, we'll need to try that. We know you can't fit in a McLaren, but we'll need to try the Ferrari.
We'll try different cars. Does Adam fit? That'll be an entire podcast series.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
But what I am seeing is that although I'm not directly involved in the day-to-day operations of MSPs anymore, I am involved in people that I worked with and come back to me and go, hey, Richard, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? Can you give a peer review? I'm going for a job interview. And the guys that are excelling and moving up in life are those guys that are authentic. Nothing against the old school techies, those guys that are just ones and zeros and digits and keyboard crunchers. But the businesses and the individuals that are selling in this world that we currently live in are the authentic people. The people that walk in there and go, I'm not perfect, but I'm going to help you. I'm going to do what I can to help you. And that's where I think the podcast will continue to go. I think we're already doing that. And that's where it will continue to go in terms of just being authentic, getting these authentic people on that have the same issues that you, Skip, and I have all experienced in the MSP and business space, and just going, this was our story. This is what we tried. It may not work exactly for you, but it may trigger something to go, hey, what about doing this different? Or what about doing that different? And it just, the authenticity will come through.
And Richard, you mentioned something there, about, the cornfield and, all the things that get the views. And as we started this journey, I want to get in, I want to get involved, understand things a bit more. And yes, it's a whole ecosystem of, what does your title need to look like? And what is the Google Analytics actually doing? And people who think they've figured out the formula, and you drive down that and you get to a point where, like now, I look at YouTube and I see, a video title or something, and I know what they're doing. And for me, I look at that and I go, there's not really any content there. They're just working to get my eyeballs into the video so they can make their promotion money. And so that is a bit of, someone not being genuine. And I think your clients pick that up. This whole MSP business model has been around for a while. And when you talk to, because I know it's been around for a while because I was selling it when it was brand new and we had to explain to our prospects, there we go, what this was. And so now that it's more commonplace, and if you're talking to your clients and you're not being genuine, there's a good chance that they know enough to pick it out and go, yeah, you're just spinning stuff to me. There's an intuitive factor, but I think today there's a bit of education that's out there and people are going to be able to pick up on it a lot sooner. So being genuine with your clients, or what we need to say, genuine with your clients is, a really, really important element in your engagement with them. So you build that trust, that partnership.
Yeah. And that's hard to do. Like when you're thinking about this overwhelming, like reels, people throwing, giant balls off of buildings and seeing how they smash. Like it's addictive to watch that stuff. Like Skip and I were watching the truck hauling between the Cybertruck and the F1 Ford Lightning, and that was a really great video. And that I felt like that was genuine.
It's good data.
And it was valuable. Like I loved watching that. It gave me a breakdown of how each of the trucks are working. But those things get hidden by all of the clickbait out there. All of the, what's the one thing you need to know? What's the thing you're missing out on? Like, and as engineers, we're like, how do I get more customers? What's the trick to it? It's not a trick. It's a relationship. No. And we've gotten so used to all these tricks and these gimmicks and the SEO and the ads, and we want to do everything but talk to somebody, because talking takes time and it's energy. And why have a conversation with one person when I can put an ad on Google and reach 10,000 people? So I feel like there's a little bit of a scam with marketing. Like, look, I can get you 10 million views for $300. Yeah. Well, that must be much better than me walking to the door and bringing a box of donuts to my favorite prospect.
Yeah.
Which costs you $20.
And I think that's the difference between referral versus marketing. Referrals have always worked better for me, not just in business, but also in personal life. If you refer somebody to me because you've had a good experience with them, because they're authentic and they're trustworthy and all of that, more than likely they're going to get my business if that's a service that they can offer me in some way, shape, and form, or just in terms of friendship. You know, and when we look at that from an MSP world, we need to be that authentic friend that we are referred to other customers, and that's how we get into the front door. You know, so in terms of the podcast and the future of where it's going and all of that type of thing, it's been no secret that a lot of the topics that have been discussed in the podcast have come from, you know, the peers out there that have said, hey, Adam and Skip, can you talk about this? Can you talk about that? Or something that's happening in the world, and it's information that we can share. So here's the social media guy going, hey guys, if there's anything you want, drop it in the comments below. And at some point it's going to come up in a discussion. You know, and if you want to be on here as a product expert for that particular topic, just make sure that you're ready for it, you know, then you know, come on board and we have these conversations, because it's authentic, true, just chilled, laid back. I mean, here you guys think I am having a beer in the middle of the day. You know, sun's gone over somewhere, you know, but it's just, it's conversations. And I think that's where the future of this podcast is going to go.
Well, and that, you know, that clickbait element, you know, taking donuts to someone versus taking donuts versus, you know, the 10,000, you know, hits versus being genuine. That easy come, easy go mantra kind of comes up there. And if you look back at the last 4 years that we've been doing this, and you think about all the global events that have happened and the challenges to everyone's business, you definitely want to build a stable client base, right? You don't want to wake up one day and, you know, something dramatic's in the headlines and, you know, 60% of your clients have canceled, right? They came really easily and they left really easily. And now you're left with, you know, budget deficits and, you know, all these challenges that you have to meet. So there is I guess I don't know, more stable element to being genuine with your clients as well. This consistency that you can do with them will, in the long run, make your life a lot easier.
Yeah. And I think, you know, your clients will feel that. And I'm hoping people listening to this podcast feel that we're growing as a podcast. And I think it's because people are like, oh, you should really check out Humanize IT. Great advice. It's 20 minutes. It's really quick. And it's driven by the topics that we hear in the community. And we're like, oh man, we should really talk about that, because it's like ChatGPT last year was very popular. So we did a webinar on it. We covered it in our podcast and tried to bring in some experts that we had a good offering on helping MSPs understand things. Now everybody's talking about it, so no need to worry. But is there anything else that isn't being covered that people need to talk about? Let's bring on an MSP. Maybe you know a lot about this particular technology that's really made a difference in your MSP, and you want to spread the word. Maybe you just want to hold it close to the chest so no one knows your secret. And what we want to do is really help in a genuine, as Skip said, in a genuine way, help the MSP, help our listeners improve their lives, their relationships with their clients and with people just around them in their business. And how do we do that? We do that through building relationships and giving genuine advice that is actually helping, that people are asking about. Like, how do I mean, even the mental health one, like there was a number of people asking in forums, like, what do I do about burnout? I saw that post like 3 times from 3 different people in like a 2-week period. And like, man, there's something going on out there. So my wife's like, oh, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. Like, let's have her on. Let's talk about this mental health thing and give some advice so that people can figure out where they need to go to get help. Yeah. That is authentic. So
it is, Adam. And what I was going to mention was that you were speaking about, you know, being a product expert and coming onto the podcast and sharing that information or not. There is a pain point of being on the bleeding edge of technology. And any MSP that I've worked with numerous MSPs around the world, any MSP that is using bleeding edge technology or processes within the business, we've all felt the pain, and it's some of it doesn't work. You end up snipping off the end of your finger and go, okay, well, we learned that lesson. We won't do it again. But also there's other times where you do it and you go, hey, we are at the forefront of what we're doing and it's paid off really successfully. And when you've got that open conversation with your client and you say, hey, this is something new we're trying, we value your feedback because this isn't just a product we're selling you and we disappear. No, this is a relationship that we have. There are certain benefits on being on the bleeding edge of technology. As opposed to lagging. And I see that as one of the challenges we have as the podcast. If you go and Google MSP podcasts, there are not a whole lot out there that are big, consistently pushing out valuable entertainment in terms of a podcast around the MSP space. And I think part of that is because what we discussed previously around there's no MSP tag that you can go and put in there, that says, hey, we're focusing on the MSPs. But here we are, 200 episodes and one into it, consistently doing it. And a lot of that has, like we've mentioned before, it's been crowdsourced by the peers and the individuals that are part of, our greater team, us and our peers and our customers and, but also just the value that we want to add back into the MSP space. The first company I worked for coming out of, into my first corporate job was an MSP. And I walked out of that job and I was like, never again do I want to work for an MSP. Well, some 20 years later, almost, I'm not that old, almost 20 years later, I'm still in the MSP space and I love it. I hate it sometimes, but I love it because I love giving back to the community. And Skip, as you mentioned, I don't know if it was now or previously, whatever the case is, but every member of the community that we deal with, they're dealing with the same pain points, but within a different, they've seen it from a different pane of glass. So what I did with the one, you can't do with the other, and you can't repeat it because every customer is different. But when you understand the foundation and the premise of how you build your business, the processes, and what you want to give back to your customer, all of a sudden you find this repeatable recipe that you might just need to tweak the flavor for with everybody else. And I see that happening with the podcast as it grows and as it develops, and whether we get sponsors that come on board, I know for a fact that it won't just be sponsors that are money grabbing from our point of view or from your point of view. It'll be a case of, well, what value are you adding to the industry and to our community? If you're not, well, thanks very much. You're now on episode 250 by then. We don't need you. We've done 250. We'll get to 1,000 without you.
And that's our kind of we were talking about that in a previous meeting today about culture fit. Like there are some companies that are good culture fit for us and some that are not. And if you ever work with Humanize IT and what we're doing here with any of us, culture is important. And good fit is important. And so when we're working with other vendors, it's like, they kind of gave me a bad feeling. Like I don't feel like they had the excitement there. And then other people are like, oh my gosh, I love working with like a Halo or, like a Tim or a Jonathan at Ninja, and like we've got our people that just share the energy and enthusiasm we have for changing the industry. Nice. Saw your swag there. as Richard's drinking the Ninja Kool-Aid with his koozie.
My daytime drinking.
Yeah, your day drinking. So the relationships matter, and like it should with your clients as well. Like that's why we want to bring on more MSPs into the podcast. We want more genuine relationships, people who are doing things really well. So if you're one of those people and you're listening to this podcast, you want the publicity of being on a podcast, having all the viewers, and showing that you are a genuine MSP trying to help. Reach out to us. Comment on the thread. Send me an email and say, "Hey, I'd love to be on the podcast. Let's get you in. I'd love to get like a good 12 to 15 before the end of the year. That would be amazing. That'd be a podcast like every other week from an actual MSP giving advice."
Yep.
And let me throw out something here. Kind of the bleeding edge sort of thing. We think about technology and the bleeding edges of that, and we're all moving through, from ArcNet and Token Ring all the way up to 40 40 gig Ethernet or whatever, right? We've made those transitions. But what about your business? What about the way you do things? That should be evolving as well. And if you see that in your business, if you're seeing, hey, I've changed the way I do this, we're communicating differently, we're doing this differently within our teams and our organizations, then you're kind of the culture fit that we're looking for. You're the type of people that we want to talk more, we want to get this, because as you change, you figure out the next things you need to change. And if you're just trying to run this boilerplate, series of things that came out of a book 10 years ago, yeah, we're probably not a cultural fit. But for those of you that are operating a changing business, you're growing, you're evolving, you're doing more. Yes. Let's get together and let's grow with this together.
Let's change the community together. All right, guys, I have loved this podcast. We're still going hard. And I'll be out on vacation during these two being posted. So I'll be just back today, I think. So email me if you want to be on this podcast. I'll be just back today, but I'll be cutting through 10,000 emails. But I am excited to talk to each one of you. Thank you, guys, and have a good day.
Cheers, guys.